Hello.
Hey, Hope Myers, we're live. I see you thinking we haven't started. You are not late. You are right on time. Hi, Ryan.
How's it going, Tish?
Well, it's going great. I see that you are matching me today with your Wakelet hoodie. It's good to see you back on a webinar again.
Feels good to be back on a webinar again. Can't lie.
Yeah,
Good to be
yeah.
here, and especially talking about portfolios. Something
It
near
is
and
our
dear.
favorite topic, portfolio. So if you are joining live, here's what I want you to do. So this is for all of the Hope Myers out there. I want you to, and Dustin from Kansas, I see you. You're going to go to that share button. You're going to share this live webinar out with everybody. Send it to Twitter, send it to your Facebook, share it on Instagram, wherever you need to share it. We want as many people to join because this is going to be a really rare webinar with Ryan and I. We're going to walk you through the really cool course that we're about to share with you live. It's going to go live. We have Elle behind the scenes waiting for us to push the button. So I see her face. She's like waiting with her headphones. It looks like she's about to fly a plane or ride a wave. So Ryan, who else do you see in the chat that you recognize? Do you see anybody?
I'm looking through because it's crazy. It keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. But we see. I've gotten Hope. I've got Dorota. I'm trying to see who else I can see. There's Selma. How about you?
Larissa, hello. We've got Ukraine, Egypt, Poland. Hello. Oh, we have our Poland friends. I get so excited when I see some of our community that I haven't seen in a really long time on a
Renee,
webinar.
fellow
Mhm.
Pennsylvanian.
Absolutely. Croatia, Morocco, Pennsylvania, Ryan. There's a
I just said
Pennsylvania.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, we all think that you're from New York.
I'm not.
Somebody told me that the other day. They said, "So Ryan's from New York." Of course he can. And I'm like, "No, he's from Pennsylvania." See, I even corrected them.
That's what happens when
Tiffany,
you
there's
associate.
Tiffany
Yep,
from
with
New
a
York.
Buffalo. All right.
Tiffany from Buffalo, New York. You won't know this or even expect me to say this, but Buffalo, New York is one of my favorite places that I've ever been to. And I really want to visit again soon. So shout out to all the
Give her Tim Hortons and Charlie the Butcher and
That's it. Oh, and the Home to Suites
Home to
hotel. I'm
Sweets.
good. I'm good. I could live there for at least a week. Well, Ryan, I think we should ask our audience a question. What do you say?
I think so. I think it's time to get this kicked off and ready.
All right. So on Ryan's screen, he's going to share with you a QR code and a Menti code. And by the way, if you didn't already know, or this is the first time that you're joining, we will share the collection out with you that Ryan's presenting from. And this will be viewable later. So you can always come back and rewatch this or share this with your students. Dustin says Ryan doesn't have that classic accent. That's funny, Dustin. I love that.
Until I go wash my car, and then it
I
comes
was
back
gonna
out.
say, if I get angry, Dustin, you'll hear the West Texas accent come out from me. So that's funny that you said that. All right. So we have a question for all of you in the chat and all of you watching. And I will leave this Menti up for a couple of days so that if you are rewatching or watching the replay, you can answer this as well. So what does the power of learning by doing mean to you? So we use that phrase a lot, Ryan and I, when we're talking to teachers and educators about portfolios. But if you or your students are watching, you can answer for your students. We want to know, what does the power of learning by doing, what does that mean? I think we all assume that everybody knows what that means, but what would that look like in the classroom? We want you to answer. And the interesting thing is I've got the Menti up. I'm going to show you the live viewing of that. So again, you can scan that QR code. So far, we only have 2 answers. So I'm really hoping those of you that are in the chat will scan the QR code, give us an answer on that, because I see way more than 2 of you in the chat. So I know you're out there. I know you're ready. So don't make me put you on the spot like a teacher. Just kidding. I get my teacher mode when I only get 2 responses. Okay, Brian, they're coming through.
All right, perfect.
So let's go ahead and share. I'm going to share my screen now. So, Ryan, let me know if you can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right. So, what does the power of learning by doing mean to you? Those of you that have responded, we've got 13 responses: exploration, um, actively engaged, authentic understanding, SEL, active, connection. That's a really good one. Belonging, hands on. I think that is huge. Hands on. Let's see what other words stand out to you, Ryan. Mine's moving very quickly
It's
over
moving.
here.
Yeah, I thought authentic was great. I thought meaningful was fantastic. Real world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing those. I mean, SEL is always important. Belonging, connected, and action, I think, are the ones that really stick out for my responses as it keeps moving around as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because I always want to set up. I think I tell Ryan a lot of times I think of everything like basketball for some reason. And I always think of everything as like a setup for a goal. And when we talk about the power of learning by doing, a lot of us in this chat on this webinar did not get to experience the power of learning by doing. A lot of us were experiencing the power of learning by sitting. Am I wrong, Ryan?
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to come back over to Ryan. Let me just make sure. There we are. Okay. So I want you to continue. We can pop that back up, Ryan. If anybody has questions in the chat, we'll pop that Minty back up because I want you to continue. You have you can answer, I think, 3 times. So if you have more answers, please add them. Um, so Ryan, I have a really special question for you. Are you
Tisha,
ready?
fire away.
So, what do you tangibly have today to show for all the learning that you did in your time during K through 12, or maybe even kinder through your bachelor's degree? What do you have to show today?
I can show you. I do have a box of old materials that my parents had collected, like all the old papers and everything. I even found my old like G&T paperwork. So like my gifted and talented old handwritten IEP, which is fantastic. Really cool piece of notations. But when it really comes to something that was material and useful, I didn't have anything, and I wasn't prepped and ready for college. I didn't know what to do. And then when I got to the teaching school, it was all about crafting and creating your portfolio. And it was done digitally, and I was able to put my materials in, but I couldn't really, at that point in time, 2005, it wasn't as easy to share out with what I had. I'd take my flash drive in and like make copies and leave it behind of my resources. So when I went to become an administrator back in 2014, I created this wonderful beacon of amazingness. This I present to you is the Ryan McGinnis Administrative Portfolio. It is, about 4 or 5.5 pounds of papers, documents, random things that fall out like a pin.
That wasn't even planned, you guys.
Not planned, but that's what I had. I had this big binder, and I would lug it from district administrative interview to interview and pass it around and watch it be handled and looked at and observed and brought back.
Would that binder make Leslie Note proud?
Yes, yes.
Dustin came here for the jokes, and I'm here for it. That's hysterical.
That well.
Listen, I was going to ask you if you. That was going to be my question to you. Did you have to lug that around from school to school or interview to interview? And I see Hope agrees. There's a lot of you who lived that life. I will tell you that I went to go look for my portfolio, and my portfolio I made for my bachelor's degree. And I couldn't find it. You want to know why, Ryan?
Why?
Because it's in my attic and it is in a tub under a ton of yearbooks. And it's definitely serving me well because it's in the attic. And I will tell you, I don't think I've seen it or looked through it in probably 10 years. And I think the thing about that is that was the life that we lived then. And the students that we have now, and even for those of us in this chat, educators, professionals, we have access to technology that will create a living document, a living thing that you can take with you very easily. You don't have to lug it around like Ryan, and you don't have to put it in your attic, taking up space like me. So we are today going to walk you through the student portfolio course. So that is the big announcement. Ryan, are you going to make this course live? Are you ready?
I
Should
am
I
all
drum
ready.
roll it?
You don't need a drum roll, but I'm ready to introduce that as soon as my screen gets pulled up. Oh, look at this. Ready? Here we go. In the nice, wonderful, soft green color, we are ready to launch our Wakelet
Yes.
portfolio course.
So this is the Wakelet portfolio course. And who is it for? That's what I want to talk about first. This is for students, but it's also for teachers. So if you are a teacher of students and you want to do this with your students, you can follow along. You can do this with your students. I love what Hope says in the chat. I'm reading all of your chats. She has had a PowerPoint, but it became a really big file. Listen, really big file that maybe didn't load when you wanted it to. There's so many struggles with that. So this course is designed to empower you and your students. Empower your students to learn digital citizenship skills, to showcase their skills and talents, to show their evidence of learning, and to embrace their shine. I think of it like 3 E's, Ryan, because you know I
5 E's.
I like to
like
do
5
that.
E's.
Empower, evidence, and embrace. And I think that's really the why behind digital portfolios. So what are we going to talk about today? What possibly could Ryan and I give you more of? It would be tips, techniques, strategies, and really walking you through how this is going to be self-paced for your students, but also for you if this is something that you want to go through. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to talk about accomplishments. So I want you to be thinking, if you're a student, I want you to be thinking about your accomplishments. And oftentimes my students would argue with me in class and say, I don't have any accomplishments. And so sometimes deep diving what your accomplishments are is the very first part of this. It's just wrapping your brain around that. So your accomplishments, your progress, whether that be in language or writing or administrative practices, leadership, advocacy, student advocacy is huge. You have the power as a student to advocate for yourself. We want to show you how to do that today. If you want to show work experiences or the best of, this is really what a portfolio is, the best of who you are to showcase and really up level where you are to where you want to be.
You get to control your narrative, right? Tell your story. Everybody has a story. We're always more than just a test score. But now we get to drive that point home in the best way possible, meeting us where we are or where the students are. And that's usually today, anywhere across the web.
Absolutely. The cool thing is that this is web-based and really I can use it, you can use it. So we're going to start a deep dive. We're going to look at the intro. So Ryan is actually going to follow along and we're going to kind of narrate for you and give you our own personal tips. Of course, I have implemented portfolios with my students from 9th to 12th grade, but we also, Ryan and I work with schools and teachers who are implementing this at the 1st grade level, at the 3rd and 4th grade level. So I don't want you to think that if you aren't high school, this isn't going to work. It will work. So what will happen is your students will go to this intro and we'll just scroll through, Ryan. We'll just kind of talk about what they have available to them. There will be a couple of videos. So it's an intro video. You'll watch that. It's self-paced again. So if your students skip this part, that's still okay. You've got 2 videos. I'll tell you, Ryan, I would be the student that would skip the videos. I might go watch the videos. I know, but you see, I always say there is a way, not the way, and your way would be to watch the videos. And I am going to deep dive. I'm going to scroll past that and see what it wants me to do.
I'll give anybody who a little tip and trick here. This first video talks about former students who have already built portfolios with Wakelet, and just hearing their stories, hearing their testimonials really sets the stage for the importance of it all.
It's really true. And if you're a teacher and you want to pull that video up for your students prior, that would be a tip that I have for you. Show them that video. It's real students who went through that portfolio process and can really speak to the benefits of creating a digital portfolio.
And this question was already in the chat. So is the ability to create portfolios free or paid, and how is it done? So the pro tip, of course, the Wakelet education plan allows you to take your portfolios with you year after year and build upon them through Clever and ClassLink. But if you're looking for a standalone version and you're okay with students having those free accounts, the base user accounts being able to create only publish 4 collections, we'll come back to that later, then you can still do this without having to run through the paid version. But you can feel free to click here and learn more.
Yeah, so we're going to, again, we're going to give you the collection of resources at the end, and you have that link there for that free trial. And then here's a little checklist. So before you start, you really need to think through, are you even familiar with Wakelet? That is the first
Mhm.
question I would really ask myself as an educator and as a student. If I'm not familiar with Wakelet, I can go to the help center and ask it specific questions. Or this is what I would do: you can go to the student certified course, and that's going to give you a foundation of what Wakelet is. So again, that's going to be where you're going to start. Are you familiar with Wakelet as a teacher or as a student? And we're giving you resources in the collection. If you're not familiar with Wakelet as a teacher, you would become teacher certified. So we have a quick course that's going to give you a foundational knowledge of Wakelet, and the students will also go through the same thing. And then you need to plan. So I always say this, but you need to know why you're doing it. What's your end goal? What are you trying to achieve as a student and as a teacher? And that is a partnership that needs to happen when you're implementing portfolios in your classroom. Like, this isn't something, that you guys are getting a bonus for Ryan and I to kind of give you tips. I can tell you, if you don't have a partnership as an educator with your students on that end goal, it won't be successful. So go over that and refine it and talk about it and make sure they understand what that is. Make sure you're communicating that, model that for them. And then, Ryan, you want to talk a little bit about reputation management and online presence? Like
Yeah,
you said it earlier.
for the first Taylor Swift reference, make sure your portfolio that just wants to be your end game, right? So with all of that rolled in, knowing where you want to go with all of this and understanding what you want to do with that portfolio, working with it from the end in mind. A lot of these ideas is just that you want to make sure that you know how you're going to use it, how you're going to pace it out, making sure that everything is set and ready. We talked about those courses and platforms available. So we're starting into module 1.
We are. Let's go ahead and deep dive into that. So again, I talked about your end goal, right? Partnership. You need to have a partnership. And that is really, it's so crucial, because if you don't know where you're going, when you get in the car, if I'm going to drive to Pennsylvania to see Ryan and I don't have a map and I don't know where I'm going, it will take me forever to get there, or I may not even arrive. So I want you to think of it in that way, whether you're a student or a teacher, and go over that and refine that. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about design thinking process. And that is one of the things that you're going to apply to this. So as we scroll through module 1, the planning piece is important. Again, your students will watch the video. If Tisha was your student, she would skip it and go to the portfolio rubric. But we've given you a portfolio rubric. Now, this is just a guide. Again, we're not telling you how to do this. We're just showing you what's possible. You can take this rubric, you can refine it, you can redo it, you can make your own rubric. Again, it's just meant to be like a placeholder so you and your students remember where you're going, right? It's like the map.
Absolutely. And the nice part is, like, we give you an example of a rubric, but it's not the be all end all. As Tisha says, what's your famous tagline? There is
There is a way, not
not.
the way.
So you might have a different portfolio rubric that you want to use, or something that's already established. We're just giving you some ideas and tips and tricks. One that I had used with high school seniors was looking completely different than one I would use with 4th and 5th grade students.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, what do we have next, Ryan?
So popping back into module 1, we're just talking about determining or demonstrating those reflective and critical thinking skills, the growth mindset, and engaging in some peer review. So we have.
I want to stop you and talk about peer reviews for a second. Can we go back up there, because I think it's really important. This is something that, as I was in the classroom for a really long time, and I was not hitting peer reviews. I was doing a lot of things in that learning cycle, but I was missing that. And I always hate to tell this because, but it's true. I was missing that part. And this is an opportunity for all of you to practice this. So peer reviews, be thinking about that. Start speaking that into your classroom and have your students talk about it. The peer-to-peer feedback. have them think about what surprises them. What do they think? What do they wonder? What do they notice? You can start doing that with your end goal when you talk about it with your students so that they can start asking you, well, I wonder if you're asking me to do this, why are you asking me to do it this way? Right? Get them in that question asking mindset because a lot of them need help to get in that. Then it would be there's another one, deliver a compliment, ask a question, and be positive. I will tell you that Ryan and I and the Wakelet team, we do this often. And this is a skill that I think is really, really important. I didn't feel like I even refined it enough before I got to Wakelet. I think it's very important, and you want to start it in module 1.
And I think for me, it goes back to something I share all the time when I talk about portfolios and portfolios for all. It's the idea that we know that when students have that emotional, behavioral, or cognitive attachment to an assessment, that's more so than just a do, return, move on to the next one. It's that constant iteration. It's that constant ability to tweak and perform and look for new ways of ideation, especially getting that feedback from their peers. And then they're able to say like, okay, I just saw what Tisha did with her portfolio. I want to do something similar, but not a straight copy. So how can I take that as inspiration and reflect and bring something bigger? So students, they're going to be engaging more. They're going to have that aspect of grabbing onto that assignment much more rigorous because they want to have that intended audience have a big outcome.
Absolutely. So the very first activity, Ryan, that we have is a template for students. So when they click on that planning my portfolio, I love that this is really basic. And again, this could be done right here within Wakelet. But you don't know this, and I think Ryan probably does, but I write everything down here before it actually goes on a collection. I do this with everything. I have to write it down and see it so that it sort of cements in my head before I do that. But this is a really great thing to show your students or for students to use as a guide. So what's the purpose? Hopefully, as a hopefully as a teacher, you guys are giving your students what the purpose is, and they can answer that very quickly. And then things you're most proud of, things you want to showcase, favorite hobbies, learning goals. This is so important. That one is really important right there. And then 3 main collections. So Ryan, you want to speak to any of that? Does anything pop out at you on this?
Yeah, I think when I was in my SMART lab, which is a big STEM lab and project-based learning, a lot of it was built around the idea of identifying goals at different points in times throughout the year and being able to cognizantly reflect back and say, like, this is what I've gotten, this is where I started, this is where I've ended. Really started working with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to just move beyond the idea of compliance, where they were just doing something to do it, to then become actively engaged in it, but then empowered to share their voice and share their experiences, whether it was positive or negative. And I think that's important to note is when students struggle, it's okay to struggle, but what can they do with that struggle? Can they turn around and talk about the struggles and what they've learned from it? Because all of that is developmental to what we need to be a fully functioning adult. We have to struggle.
Yeah, I think that the portfolio really plays into that failing forward idea.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times my students, when I started portfolios with them, they were afraid to fail. They were afraid to get it wrong. For some reason, they thought that there was a right or a wrong way to do a portfolio. And what they began to see, Ryan, is that you see on those 3 main portfolio collections, when they started creating their collections, and doing those peer-to-peer reviews and feedbacks and discussions, they were realizing, like we're all meeting that goal, but all of our collections are completely different with different content. They look different. I'm presenting it differently. And I think it's so important for them to really learn that lesson here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think like if you and I were to do a portfolio real fast, we'd have 3 different collections, completely different than what we were going to put out there. So
exactly. I mean, even now, if you look at our Wakelet profiles, you'll see that they're completely different and they're always being updated and being changed. So that is just something to keep in mind. So now that you've done the planning for your portfolio, a pro tip.
Pro tip. Yep. Ask your friend or classmate for their feedback on your plan before you start diving in. Talk it over, see if there's any, tips or tricks that they want to add to it, any suggestions for improvements before we start diving in.
This is so powerful for my students because here's what happened, Ryan. I was no longer the one leading the discussion.
Yep.
They were having conversations that I was overhearing, and that is when you know that you have your students engaged. When they're talking about the content and you're not leading the conversation, you are just a bystander.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're on to module 2. And module 2 is going to be all about content. So, really creating your collections and putting content inside of those. So, I always said to my students, like, content first, design later, content first, design later. And that may be something as a student or as a teacher you need to remember. The content is going to be the most important piece. It doesn't have to look fantastic right away, but get your ideas and the flow of your collection solidified. So,
the nice, easy way to do that is just to create your starter collections as you're going through. So,
which Ryan's going to do for us.
After I've gone through my planning doc, I can go ahead and create my very first collection. And I'm going to say it is going to be all about my achievements. And I love the fact that because we're web-based, it automatically saves, puts that material in there so that when I do go back to my collections area, my achievements collection is already built in and ready. I can go in and create another one. And maybe for this one, I'm going to tell you a little known skill. I've got some trumpet playing skills. I used to play the trumpet in high school, or actually elementary school, maybe a little bit into high school before I backed out. So again, I could have that collection. And now I could build my third one, but quick, easy. I'm just getting the collection built and ready. I'm not adding any of that content in just yet.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's it. I think that's really good for everyone to see, especially students. That becomes like a placeholder, right? So now you kind of know what you want to showcase, but you're not sure what the details are yet. So again, we're just taking this step by step. Then as we scroll through module 2, let me see. I'm not in the same place you are. I'm following along with you, Ryan. I'm doing a follow along with you. So then we're going to take some notes. And again, your notes can look like mine, or you can put notes in your collection. I've done that before. What do you like about each collection? What do when you're doing peer-to-peer feedback, what did I like about Ryan's and what did Ryan like about mine? We can take those ideas and craft them to our portfolios and just make them our own. So I think that's really important, knowing what you dislike and why and what you want to avoid. Maybe if Ryan and I are peer-to-peer feedbacking our profiles or our collections, I may not like how Ryan does something. And the thing is, we need to be okay with that. Again, we hate the phrase, but it's a way, not the way. Neither way is wrong. We're still meeting that goal. And that's really it. Justin's still in the chat with funny comments.
I love it. That was right around the same time too. So not too far off. But I think back for me, it was, my wife's a teacher. I'm a teacher. When I was going for principalship jobs, I would honestly take it. And it's a nerve-wracking experience having other people look at your work, especially when it's your spouse at the same time. Like, I trust her with everything, but I'm like, would you hire me based on this? And hearing her feedback and being like, putting post-it notes and sticky notes everywhere and saying, maybe change something out for this or take this just in case. It really helped. I could have been very shy or very defensive about what was put on there. But at the same time, I knew that I was only going to get better from hearing that feedback. So taking her notes, putting in those notes of my own, again, just like you said, it could be handwritten, or I could go into a collection and say, I uploaded my essay, leave a note that says, create a video reflection next, right? And I can come back to that when I have more time.
I think it also, as you were speaking, I think it was just really, you said something about the notes that you were getting, the sticky notes, and being not getting defensive. And somebody in the chat or on the Mentimeter said social emotional learning.
Yep.
This is that connection piece. This is where you have those conversations with your students and teach them how to receive feedback. They have to know how to give it, but they also know how to receive it. How do you gracefully receive someone saying that they don't love a certain aspect of your work? That's difficult. I will tell you, Ryan, I did have some students there were some tears shed some days. And it was because we just hadn't practiced that skill yet. And they were in high school. So I think it's really important early on to start this. Okay. So we're going to look at we're not going to open these, but we want you to know that there's inspiration here so that you and your students can go look at those examples. And then the pro tip is going to be layouts. So Ryan created collections, but he could go in and change his layout. And what I want to say about layouts is it's really interesting. Again, you always have to know what your end goal is, but you also want to know what message are you trying to convey with that collection, and you can use layouts to do that. Which layout is this one that we're looking at, Ryan?
So this is our mood board layout, right? The idea doesn't matter which one is first or second. It's just a collection of a bunch of my favorite coffee places or other people's favorite coffee places while traveling. So the order makes no difference to me in this collection whatsoever. So I can keep it in that mood board collection. Whereas maybe if there is something more linear, it might need to be top down.
Yes.
And more abridged so that it is more orderly with my content. And of course, anytime you are in those collections, you can click and choose from our layouts, right? So any one of those layouts are available for you at any time.
Yeah, I think I think that just your collection, seeing your collections there and how you've thought through the coffee one can be in any order.
Mhm.
When you're doing a process with students, sometimes it needs to be in an exact order. If you're doing a grid layout, that could be a compare and contrast. Maybe I want to showcase what my artwork looked like last year and what it looks like this year, right? You have a lot of social media aspects where they're like, a year ago today you were doing this. What do you look like today? Right? It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm doing artwork, maybe I do the grid view, like you said, compare and contrast, but put my piece of artwork and my reflection or the
Right.
reason why, or what's the backstory behind that I created it. So that when someone's looking at it, yeah, they can form their own opinion of the work, but then they can look at it through the artist's perspective, the artist's eyes, and see exactly what was created.
So Ryan, Renee has a question. So for student portfolios, do you recommend having a separate collection for each class or making one collection with a table view layout? So I'm wondering, go ahead and try to answer that and we'll ask Renee some clarifying questions.
Yeah, I think for me, again, it comes back to Tisha's favorite statement. There's not a way, or there's not the way, there's a way, whatever, however you say it. I never can say it correctly. But it's just what the intended audience is and what works best for your students. I'm a very scatterbrained person. So for me, just putting the materials out there works really well for me. So that mood board layout just tends to work really well. If I'm thinking of a portfolio, again, it probably depends upon, the free model versus the Education Pro version. Education Pro unlocks so many other features like the video record, the video upload. It also allows for those portfolios to follow year after year and take it with them when they graduate. So there's extra things that allow that to happen. Whereas if you're working with the base user accounts, you're limited to 4 on that public profile. So it's really hard to pick and choose your best works, knowing that you only have 4 collections that can be published to that public profile.
Yeah. And Renee, it's interesting because, like Ryan said, it's really going to be up to you how you do this.
Mhm.
I've seen it where I think Tanya's in the chat. If she's still here, she can speak to this, but she has a collection for each of her students and they're putting their work into those portfolios, thinking through that. And a lot of times it's pictures or pictures of their notes. It really is up to you. I've also seen the column layout where, and if you have like 50 students, this would not work, but if you have 10 to 12 students, you could have 10 to 12 columns and each student has a column and you're just putting their work in for them or working that way. It's really up to you. Again, Ryan's going to pull up
My
Kennedy's
daughter's.
example.
Yeah, my daughter's example, Renee, is just a single collection, but it's got little separators in it. So she's using text to separate different things. So it would be like your idea of a collection and then a separations for each class. So this is the idea of one collection. And then she's got her leadership. She's got a video in there. She's got her leader awards. She's got her materials. Her second title is creativity. So this could be her science work. And she could put materials in this part. And then teamwork, right? This could be ELA. So you could have, again, so many different ways of doing it. But whatever fits the best method for your students and what you're trying to accomplish, I think is what's most important.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're moving on to module 3. And while Ryan is making that transition, I'll just tell you, yes, there will be a form to complete. I know you always ask. I will put in the chat towards the end. Once we get towards the end, you'll get the resources. You will get the form for your certificate. So just hang out. We'll get that to you. I have it all ready and waiting. But we're going to go ahead on to module 3 now, which is organizing your collections and your profile. Now, we answer this question a lot, so I kind of want to hit on it, really using Ryan's Wakelet account. So Ryan, let's go back and look at your collections.
So all of my collections are here. Everything is housed. I could have millions of collections based on a bunch of different topics, right? I've got a conference or a concert that I went to that I had screen recordings and things I wanted to share out just so that I could remember that concert later on. But I've also got that best coffee materials. I've got things from my trip to Manchester way back in 2022, right? There's my trip, and I can document and relive that moment back here. So I've got all of my collections here.
Absolutely. And what I notice about your collections, Ryan, is that you actually have different graphics on each of those collections, which is something that we're going to talk about in module 3. So we'll go back to module 3 and kind of take a look at that. Those are collections. You saw Ryan's collections, and with each of the collections, he's thinking already in the back of his head which ones he might want to publish for his profile. And we're going to walk you through that part. But the activity for module 3 is to design, right? I said content first, design later. So now we're to the design part. You have all of your content. You've added all of your different, I guess, pictures or links, or you saw Kennedy's, she had all sorts of things. And now we're going to design. So when you click on that design button, you have some options. You've got some choices here. You can upload an image that you've already created, which is super easy. You could create it in anything. Or we have the integration design with Canva.
See if my internet decides to play nice today. Yep.
And then, Ryan, I want to show them something. Now, if you're here, then congratulations, I'm going to show you a little trick. So Ryan, I'm going to share my screen now for just a second. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do a little thing. Let me see. I'm going to add my screen. So I'm in Canva, just like Ryan. You see me in Canva. And I'm going to show you a trick because we wanted to talk about design, right? So this is why I wait for my students to do designing later, because I know how much time they can spend on this. And sometimes they forget the goal, right? The end goal. But this is an example of a way to utilize Canva. So I've created this little business card. My students actually did this. This was inspired by them. This QR code goes to my Wakelet profile. And I want to show you what you can do with that. So if I click the share button, I can go down to more. Okay. So you want to make sure you do these steps. You go down to more, and then you have the embed. And when you enable an embed, you have something called a smart embed. Okay. So when I copy that smart embed and I take it over to a Wakelet collection, for example, this is the one we're going to give you. I'll delete this later. But I'm going to paste that in to that collection, and you see how it automatically embeds, Ryan? It's right there. If I had multiple pages, I could flip through those pages as well. But that's just one way that you can embed or utilize that Canva integration, right? It works really beautiful. So when your students want to get really creative, you can blow them away with that. Or if you're a student watching this, you can share that with all of your teachers. Okay, so we're back to Ryan's collection. He had added an image. Okay.
Added an image, yeah. Used Unsplash.
Like an 80s trophy that I got for winning the spelling bee back in the day, Ryan.
I was to say it might just be my participation trophy for just being. It's fine. It's fine. But no, I'm just being able to utilize what's available. Going to that design, creating in Canva is fantastic. I do get lost in that rabbit hole of Canva where we're always tweaking and looking to make things perfect, especially color patterns. Like I really need to make it work. So for me, sometimes Unsplash is just perfect to get right on in there and take my content to the next level.
I love this idea. Learn Together says I made a template for my students' portfolio, but each one could change whatever they wanted to change or add. I think that's a really great way to bring voice and choice into your classroom. So that's a really, really great tip. We know that you guys love that Canva integration. So we like to show you the power of that, especially if your students have the ability to use Canva is just really, really beneficial. You can do the same thing with Adobe or Unsplash, like Ryan said. And we've given your students some resources here. So how to build your brand with Wakelet. Branding is something that I actually talked about with my students when I did the portfolios with them. So branding goes along with that digital citizenship. It goes along with that reputation management. Shout out to Taylor Swift. And then we've added some more links. So as you scroll down, you'll see some resources, but you want to add high quality images. I would say that is a tip. If you do not have access to a high quality image, you want to see if you can find something different. But Unsplash has really good images. In a pinch, I've used Unsplash very often.
Yeah, I think it's just great to be able to quickly go in, find it so that your students aren't getting lost, in that whole design element. They can come back later too and tweak it and make elements and change. And
we're going to talk about that. You're right. I'm glad it's like you Easter egged us into some of the things we're going to talk about. So then the last activity is, now that your collections are looking better, it's time to publish your collection. So remember, you are always thinking about the end goal, whether you're a student or a teacher. And as you're creating those collections, Ryan has now made his achievement or coffee collection look great. And he's going to think about sharing that to his profile. So there is a publish button
right beside.
So show them that process one more time, Ryan, just because I want to make sure. So they're in your collection, you're going to click the share button. And to the right of share is publish. You're going to click publish. And then he's going to press the button publish. And now he's going to show you where that is going to show up.
So if I go over to my account and click to drop down to my public profile, it's now going to be live at the very bottom of my public profile, which I can edit and tweak and change at any point in time. I've got a sections, for portfolios for all. I've got my digital learning resources. So all the way at the bottom, I'll find the one that's uncategorized. All the way down. There we go. And then I can click or drag to rearrange wherever I want to put this collection. I can move it to a section. And just for today, I want it to be spotlighted so that it be the highest one up on my list, so that it will drive itself all the way up to the top of my public profile. So for those of you who are looking and following along, you can see my coffee shops.
So Ryan, I'm a student in your class, and I say to you, Mr. McGinnis, I do not want to have sections. I do not want to have sections. Please take sections off. How do I do that?
Well, you can edit your profile. So we'll go back to this first, because we want to make sure that you can change all of your name, your bio, anything that you want to change there, your image and likeness. And then from here, I can go through and delete some of these. So if I don't need any of these headings or headers, I can take off and see those.
And at the top, if I wanted to add one, I think it's at the very, very top, Ryan, of the
I have to zoom out because I'm too big on my screen. But if I do that, you'll see add new section. So I can click and add a new section, and then it's going to populate it over here on the side. So these becomes a quick hotbar for me to jump to my collections. But I can click and add a new section and say hot resources, hot like it's coffee. And we'll let it do its thing.
So while we're waiting on that, Hope has a question. These multiple profiles are available only with a paid version, is her question.
Multiple profiles.
Yeah, Hope, give us a little more context for your question. Ryan only has one profile. And Ryan, go to your coffee collection again.
Yep.
Your famous one. Sometimes you create a collection, you don't know how popular it's going to be.
There we go. All right, there's my collection. Sorry.
I like hot resources. It'll be coffee.
Yep, now I can drag it up there.
Okay, so when you open up coffee, the other way that you can get to your profile, and I just want to, this is a tip because a lot of times people don't know this, but if Ryan clicks on his name right there within the collection, it will also take him to his profile. So it's another way to get to your profile and see what it looks like. So Ryan has one profile, Hope. All the other stuff you're going to ignore because Ryan's account is like, he's Mr. Wakelet. He has a lot of different things on his account. He has multiple collections on his profile. Yes. So you do have multiple collections. It's because he made the choice to publish all of those collections on his profile. So when he clicks his profile and he scrolls through, every collection you see is public.
Something I've made public. I've went in and clicked the share button. I've clicked publish because I want people to either be able to go and view it and look at it, make a copy. If I'm at a conference or an event, it's an easy way for me to share my materials and resources. So this is, yes, I have multiple collections on my profile. Yes. This is where that conversation again comes back to with that. What can you do? What's the cost for this? With the base user accounts, you can publish 4 collections out here on your profile. So students and teachers just have to be aware of what 4 collections they want to share.
Yes. Okay. So Hope says, love this. Unpaid version has this capability.
Yep. 4 times. So I can put 4 collections out here. I can still separate them. I can still put them in 4 separate sections and dividers. Right. I can only have 4 collections at any time. So it could be achievements, essays, and then
college admissions or college application. It could just be like Kennedy's leadership. She could just have a leadership section. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other questions? Hope, we appreciate your questions. Actually, just keep those questions coming. And now we're going to move on to module 4 because we are close to the end of our time together, which is crazy.
And Dustin, you're not far from the truth, man. Places to find Ryan in the morning at conferences.
And Hope is asking, if she removes 1 collection, can she add another, or is it 4 and done?
No, you can unpublish a collection, so you can go back into any one of those collections. If I published it at first, I'll publish this one, and then if I go back in and I don't want that one anymore, Hope, I can unpublish it, and that will open up a spot for me with that.
Yep, exactly. Great questions. All right, so module 4, I'm calling module 4 Share and Shine. What I used to tell my students is to own your shine, because a lot of times they had difficulty owning that individualistic side of themselves. They were used to kind of all being the same, doing the same thing, creating the same work. But we have pulled in some portfolio examples for you and your students so that they can have some reference on what other student portfolios look like. So we won't bother you with that today. We'll scroll through because you're seeing Ryan's profile. There's a video there as well. So you will want to stop and watch the video. But we want to talk to you about the activity, because the activity is really going to center around digital citizenship. And Ryan briefly talked about it, but we want to talk about that bio section of your profile. So when you go into your profile, you have this little section, and you would click edit profile in order to add or change anything. So you'll see at the top of Ryan's, he has the blue Wakelet header. Okay. And when he chooses to design that, I think, yep, there you go. So he can either upload or choose from Unsplash. This just gives your students the ability to kind of come up with branding. You can talk to them about branding. Again, it's that reputation management. And then his profile picture. I'll tell you, Ryan, I talked a lot with my students about profile pictures. I have taken the journey with students and profile pictures since 2005. And I would have to tell my students, like, the thing that you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat is not necessarily what you're going to put on your profile. This needs to be a professional picture. It needs to be a picture that is taken, from the chest up if you want, but it needs to be able to show your face and not have your head cut off, and kind of be able to show who you are, how you want to represent yourself professionally. Then we talked bio. So what should I not include in my bio? Well, I shouldn't include my mailing address. Yes, I should not include my phone number. I should not include an email that I don't want anybody to try to hack into. You see what I'm saying? So these conversations are going to really hone in on that digital citizenship piece. And then depending on your student's grade level, you can talk to them about social links. My students added their LinkedIn profile. So we had a conversation. I had a whole unit on social media and how to utilize that for professional or college or career readiness. Ryan has all of his social media. If you happen to check out my profile, I don't think I have all of mine. I think I have LinkedIn and Twitter, possibly, maybe something else. But this is a great time to talk about what not to include. And Ryan made his fun with emojis,
The
right? So
elementary teacher and all of us, emojis make everything better.
it always makes me laugh because I probably come off with the personality that I'm the elementary teacher and you're the secondary teacher, but it's actually flip
Reverse.
flopped. I am the secondary teacher. So my students, I really didn't have them use emojis a whole lot for this, but you absolutely could. This is meant to be fun and really give your students a sense of ownership and autonomy. So I think it's really important to talk about this with them. Just another note: anything that is published for your students, right, is not going to really go out into the world. Ryan, do you want to talk to them about that?
Yeah, so your accounts, when students have that ability, they will be safe, secure accounts. They will not be visible. I cannot go to their profile page and find it unless the district opens up that option for them to share outside of the domain. Then I can use a share link to find my way back. But otherwise, we cannot go in and find the students.
Yeah, I think it's
Unlike,
really important to hit on that, just because, I answer a lot of questions, as I'm sure you do too,
Mhm.
about if students publish a collection, is
Who can see
everybody in the world going to be able to see that? And the answer is no. Okay, so we're on module 4 and we're towards the end with the pro tip. Don't include personal information, like we said, in your bio. It's really
Yep.
important for you to teach your students that. And then again, they will be private. And then the activity towards the end of this is going to be for your students or you to think of 3 different people, businesses, mentors, teachers to send this portfolio to. And again, it's getting them to think about that feedback piece. It's setting them up for module 5. So when we get to module 5, you will see module 5 is all about self assessment and gathering feedback, which we've mentioned this a lot, Ryan. I didn't expect this to come up as much as it has, but it's so important.
It's a feedback. I mean, it's the idea of knowing that you're iterating and you're never in your final stage. I mean, you think back to you and I and our journey here to working at Wakelet. Like, we've iterated every time. We've changed different elements. We've had to adapt and change, even in our roles at the company. Like, we're learning new things and constantly evolving. And that's what we want to showcase in our portfolio, is that we're never the same person who we were in that solid state of time. So using that process to self-assess, gather feedback, and spit out again that newer version, that new organizational pattern, that new section that's going to tell your story.
Yeah, I think that. I'm so glad you said that. We're going to talk about it again. That we're never the same. A
Mhm.
pro tip, though, for module 5 is going to be to set a reminder. Now, I use Siri reminders and Alexa reminders and sticky note reminders, but I am in my Wakelet profile often. I'm in my collections often. My mindset now is that it's ever changing, ever evolving. It's never finished. And I think that is really what we want to hit on for module 5. So your students will go through, they can watch this brief video that we have for them. And then as we scroll down, the activity is for peer to peer feedback. So it comes back to have your students practice delivering a compliment, asking a question, being positive. Maybe they have 2 compliments for a profile and they have 1 wish, like, this is what I wish you would change. Or you could even prompt them and have them talk about, I was surprised by this, or I think this about your photo, or I wonder what would happen if you did this, or this is what I noticed. So we've given you some examples. Of course, you're all teachers. You already are doing this. You understand this, but we've given you some prompts. That portfolio peer review prompt to just help guide you and help guide your students. That's really what this is about. You're wanting to let them kind of take the lead on this and start really owning their learning. So then then it's time for them to self-reflect. So we're actually completing that entire learning process with that
Mhm.
peer-to-peer feedback and the reflection. So Ryan, when you reflect on your portfolio, tell me some of the things that you've told yourself after looking at it. You said it today because before we went live, they don't know that you were looking at your profile and you were actually having self-reflection with it.
Well, yeah, I think just all the time, like I looking at my profile, I'm always like, what can I change or how can I make it easier for people to find my Wakelet profile so that if I'm at an event, people can get the resources, get in, get out, and be quicker with that. But also when I pulled out my giant portfolio, I'm sitting there thinking like how much time and effort I spent, not just with my wife looking it over, but with my advisors at the college and being like, here's my material, give me the feedback, asking other people for like, how did your interview go? What did you do? What was the best thing? And I think it's just constantly understanding like you're never done,
Yeah.
right? I know we've said it a couple of times. It's never done. It's it's not like that worksheet that it's just done and over with. It's the constant iteration and being
Yeah.
okay with that.
Absolutely. Well, if you'll pop over to our resource collection, Ryan, I want to end with this. I have put the resource collection link in the chat as well as the certificate link. But on our resources, if you'll keep scrolling down just a bit, right there, I
There it is.
want to pop in this graphic. Here's the thing. It's not finished. This is not you get to module 5 as a student or a teacher and you're done. This isn't the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning of the journey. So that's what I want to remind all of you about as you are working through this student portfolio course. If you are a teacher working through your own portfolio and your collections, I need you to remember that this circle is actually sometimes going to be an infinity shape, right? You're going to go and move around over and over and over. You're going to test certain things. You're going to ideate something else. You're going to create an experiment with another idea. And that is why Wakelet is such a great solution for you and your students. I can tell you it has made me grow. It made my students grow. As Ryan said, we're still growing in our Wakelet journey every single day. So I want you to remember module 5, when you send that in to your teacher, or if you're a teacher and you get to module 5 and you're like, well, I'm done, I'm going to walk away like I do with my portfolio in the attic. No, that is not what you're doing with this. You want to go back, you want to restructure, you want to rethink, you change. It is evolving with you as you grow into whatever journey you're on.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take my digital portfolio that I made in college back in 2001 on that little tiny USB drive at the time and turn that in for a principalship interview in today's world. I just wouldn't do it, right? It wouldn't be my best reflection. I would probably wouldn't, half the programs wouldn't even load. So once you finish number 5, it's like back to number 1 and review process. And what are my goals with this portfolio for the next step, next journey, next phase of my life, the next era, if you will? Like, what is it going to be? And then what am I going to do? And you start that process over and over again. Or as Dustin says, lather, rinse, repeat, never
It's
ends.
true. Listen, Dustin, we appreciate you joining. We loved your personality. Hope. Thank you for all of your questions. Honestly, we love the questions. What it does is it gives insight to so many people who are rewatching this video later, and just really makes this a timeless space. We are exactly an hour in, Ryan. So we're going to end our webinar. I will post the links in the chat one more time for the certificate and the collection. Any last parting words for our viewers today, Ryan? Which are
No,
probably students.
now I'm hopeful that there's some students out there, and I hope that a lot of you get a chance to really control that narrative, tell your story, share what makes you you and makes you unique. When anybody's looking at a test score, it's really hard to determine, who you are from, 856, right? Whether that's a good number or a bad number, no one really knows. But being able to say, here's who I am, this is my achievements, this is stuff I'm proud about. You're controlling that narrative and you're telling the world who you are, and you're owning that voice and empowering yourself to, announce to the world that you're here. So keep that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the students and the teachers out there, I want to echo what Ryan said. You are more than a test score. We understand that that is part of what you do every day, but owning your shine, sharing and shining is going to be my new motto for all of you. Share your shine. If you don't know where you're shining, then you need to find a thought partner, whether that's a teacher or a friend or someone else who's doing what you're doing, because you have so much shine. And your Wakelet portfolio is really the vehicle to share that with the world. So send your questions in. Ryan and I are both on social media. We've put our Twitter handles there. We always joke that they're not as simple as they maybe should be, but you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm Tisha Poncio everywhere else. So if you want to find me anywhere else, I made that really easy, but we will answer your questions anywhere. You can email us, Tisha@Wakelet.com, Ryan@Wakelet.com. We're happy to help you and guide you. All of you that joined, thank you so much. Make sure you share this webinar out because we want to guide your students through this process, but also you as well as the leaders of your classroom. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Ryan, for being an amazing co-host.
Thanks for having me on again. It's always great to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. See you later. Bye.